Plumage. At the end of this story, a woman tells me I should run for office. But this is not the point. I was in a city where everything juxtaposes with everything else. The homeless man kicks open a discarded pizza box near others flinging thousands of ones at the feet of a dancing woman. I've never been able to dance or really enjoy others pirouetting with the grace I've chased in this wild ride of a life. And so I found a different bar, one with whiskey and a few less visible scars. I wore a green fedora with 4 feathers of birds I can't name and didn't kill. I've never killed anything, though I've wanted to hurt my fair share of the living, though I've hurt myself. This was back when Juneteenth first became a holiday, and a woman beside me stared as if she knew me from somewhere. But she says, "No, I just thought you were David." My name has never been David, though men have called me by more names than my mother gave my once mewling body. My hat anchored the bar's end, one of those things that draws attention, the Brunswick green, the shimmering feathers that at once were oil slick black and something almost iridescent, the thin one with its white dots and streaks of red, the wide brim. On my head, I wonder if it turns me into what I am, a man who wants to be noticed. Like when I told my young son I wrestled an alligator for the tooth he wore around his neck. If this woman was beautiful, it's not the point. The feathers reminded her of another bird, something called a greater sage grouse. And she said, for 4 weeks a year, its mundane pieces of wings became plumage, a fan of wonder and delight, and a hope that another grouse would want to be folded into that adornment. Who hasn't followed some desperation to be lovely in this world that measures losses and monuments? I know grouse means to complain and be petty about it. That a grouse is a complainer. That's how words do. In one language, the beautiful thing wanting to be seen comes from the Latin for crane. In another, such desire to be noticed translates into a grumble, a bellyache. I confessed to this woman whose name I didn't know. Told her of prisons and prisons and prisons and prisons. And became sad thinking of how my plumage has become a lament of cell doors closing. This woman was a Republican, white and surprised at this day off, this day without work. On Juneteenth, she walked into a bar in the nation's capital named after an orphan, an immigrant who became treasurer and a century later muse for a Puerto Rican American, turning this country's founding fathers into black and brown people speaking of revolution in 16 bars. I never mentioned that I cannot rap, and I'm certain the woman walked in for a drink and not to talk of plumage in prison. But what a world this can be sometimes. When she says she works for the Bureau of Labor Management, BLM, and doesn't smile, I know this is the kind of joke about Black Lives Matter that white folks make, and how time might change the meaning of all we once imagined to be normal is what she's facing. Just as a summer ago, millions of people in the streets protesting made the acronym of her government agency a call for justice. And I wonder why in Montana and Wyoming and a half a dozen states I know only by name still have moose and elk and land to be preserved. And most of what I know of cities is them falling into themselves. After I confess to being one of those violent felons and meander the words towards all that makes a person who learns of such violence not walk away, I admit that I'd like to hunt one day, to douse myself in whatever makes nature not recognize me as a man, and sit on some perch waiting to find my next meal, to find something besides prison on the other end of hours with a gun in my hand. The liquor I drink is as brown as my skin. It may be turning my liver into a crime scene. And this woman tells me that I should run. I imagine she can't understand I've been running all my life, that the feathers in my head are more faint than truth. But she says run for office, and says it again, as if saying it twice will make it more obvious. The rest matters little. Some sovereign makes it a given or a miracle. You'll notice feathers at all. We both knew that, even if not sure if there's a song without sin.